The Lord is not calling you to be perfect, okay? So take that pressure off of yourself. All he really needs for you to do is to keep showing up. He just needs you to have enough self-control to keep going. And that is fundamentally what discipline is. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dami and I am a faith-based content creator. And if you are new here, you've never seen my face before, then welcome to the family. I'm so happy that you are here and that you've tuned in to the video that we have for today. But this platform is just a space where we just keep it real, okay? Whether you are in college like me, maybe you're working full time, wherever the Lord's got you right now, I know sometimes it is not easy. So we're just here to encourage each other and to grow in our walk with the Lord together. So glad that you were here, sis. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about discipline today. And this is very, very timely for me as well. Because if y'all know the week I've already had, it's been crazy. And I've been feeling myself, just wanting to give into my flesh, my desires, which is to just sleep as much as I can, not necessarily prioritize the things that the Lord has been calling me to do, and to just let my routines fall through the cracks. Because y'all, oh my goodness, it's been quite the week. But I'm sure the same for you. Whatever it is that you're dealing with in your life, it's not always easy to be as disciplined as you may want to be, especially as a Christian, when the Lord isn't only calling us to be disciplined, in our purposes and his calling for us, but to also resist temptations and just have the spiritual disciplines. It can get really overwhelming and really hard sometimes. So yeah, we're going to talk about it today. I'm going to offer some encouragement that has helped me stay consistent, to push past my own flesh at times and to stay the course, because there is nothing better than staying in the will of the Lord. And sometimes that requires some sacrifice, sacrificing what we may be wanting to do in those situations, in those times when we're tired or we're feeling lazy. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about that has really helped me is having a strong enough why. Why do you even do the things you do with whatever it is that you're trying to increase your discipline in, whether it's with fitness, whether it's in your job, with school, whatever it is that you're trying to be more motivated in, why are you even doing it in the first place? And as Christians, our why should come a little bit easier, for us, where it's not necessarily rooted in worldly things. And there could be worldly things that are good, but at the foundation of our why as Christians, as followers of God, is God himself. Having the Lord be the reason why we do anything, to glorify him, to thank him for what he has done for us, and to be able to have this closeness with him when we are seeking him out, remaining in his will. That should be our why. For a very long time, y'all, this was not the case for me. I was being motivated by worldly things, and they weren't necessarily bad things, because even the season that I'm coming out of, where for a very long time, it was my parents motivating me, being able to have financial freedom and the resources to be able to provide my parents with a better quality life. That was my motivating factor. But I even felt the Lord telling me that I still needed to be at the center, that was his place. But even with my ambitions, with everything that I'm still working towards, I've had to become so much more intentional with not allowing those things to become idols for me, where I don't worship money, I don't worship my body, I don't worship these materialistic things that, yes, I can use to glorify the Lord, but I'm not putting them above God himself. So sometimes you just have to stop going through the motions and just take a step back and question, why am I even doing the things I'm doing? Even with the job that I work right now, why am I even working? Why am I going to work? Other than money, to survive, to pay my bills, why am I still choosing to do this? Do I have something I can place my hope in? Is there something greater that I'm looking forward to, that I understand that with where I am now, it's only a matter of time before God calls me into a new season, a season filled with answered promises and a greater purpose? You're going to have to get used to asking yourself that very often, because if you're anything like me, then probably 90% of the time, you're not going to feel inclined to do the things you're supposed to be doing. That 10% of the time, yes, maybe you'll be excited to go to work. Yes, sometimes maybe you'll feel like going to the gym and working out, but 90% of the time, we are not always going to feel inclined to do the things we know we're supposed to. And the quicker you stop relying on your emotions, and you start relying on more sustainable things, like your strong enough whys, keeping the Lord at the center of your life, the easier it really will be for you to stay disciplined and to move forward. So utilize the tools that God has given you. You have so many whys if you really look, so many things you can be grateful for on a daily basis. Whether you always feel this way or not, it really is a privilege to live the life that you live. You are living an answered prayer for somebody else, whether it's your own answered prayer, even if you're able to look back and see, wow, God, you've already brought me so far. And even though I'm not feeling motivated right now, even though I'm lacking discipline, I can still thank you. I can still show my gratitude towards you, because you've already provided me with so much. And I realize and I recognize there's so many other people who would love to be in the position that I'm in. So God, I thank you. And even if I'm not feeling that way, I want to show you that I am grateful for what you've given me. So gratitude is a huge part of this, letting gratitude be one of your whys, just thanking God for his abundance in your life and the ways that he continues to show up for you. But the bottom line is, if you want to get more discipline, you have to create intention in your life. a strong reason for doing anything at all, because how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you are able to have a strong sense of purpose in one area in your life, it can translate and affect every other area of your life. And this is where the Lord comes in. Keeping him at the center is the strongest and most sustainable why, that can affect how you show up at work, how you show up in the gym, and even how you show up for yourself. So let the Lord be your biggest why, and use all the other tools that he's given you, all the other privileges that you have. Use that to sustain you and keep you disciplined. So moving on, along with having a sustainable why, it's also so important to set realistic goals for yourself. Now, this is something I had to learn the hard way, so believe me when I'm saying this, and please let me spare you. When you have these big aspirations and these big goals for yourself, that is amazing, and that is how it should be, because the Lord can do exceedingly and abundantly. And I think it's a beautiful thing when we actually start believing that and not limiting what God can do in our lives. But the problem becomes when we try to have those dreams and aspirations outside of God's timing for us and outside of God's will. The Lord tells us in Ecclesiastes that there is a season for everything, meaning that there's going to be a time where the Lord is wanting us to sow seeds. We may be doing things that seem smaller and maybe less insignificant, but at the end of the day, is still working for our goodness, still working for the plans that he has for us, because we know that with sowing seeds, there's a harvest season where we actually get to see the Lord's promises unfold before our eyes. But a big part of that is the process, what we do in the process towards that promise, and setting realistic goals for ourselves, stewarding our time well, and actually building sustainable success. All of that is just as important as the promise, getting to that goal that we're trying to reach. So being able to set realistic goals for yourself, putting your pride to the side and doing what you have to do, doing what is going to keep you consistent and keep you disciplined, that is what the Lord appreciates, and that is what he values even more than you getting to that end goal quicker. So I encourage you to first get clear with your vision, sit down and have some time with the Lord where you ask him, what are you even working towards? What does he want you to achieve in this season? And from there, you can set realistic progress points that you can expect to achieve along the way. But this all comes back to getting clarity with your purpose, making sure you're actually pursuing God's will for your life, because being aligned with God in this process is going to make this journey so much more easier when he gives you the grace to keep going, when he gives you that grace and that favor in specific areas along the way. So make sure this is an active prayer with everything that you do, even if it seems small, still asking God, is this what you want me to be doing? Is this what you expect from me in this season? And once you're able to have a little more security and a little more certainty in your purpose, then focus more on the what and let God control the how. And I think that's been one of the best pieces of advice that I have ever been given, letting God control the how, letting God control how I get to that destination, how I get to that end goal, but making sure I keep my eyes focused on the what, making sure I'm staying in his will, I'm prioritizing what he has called me to do. So this is not a matter of you being perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Sometimes you're going to make the wrong decisions. Sometimes you may be a little lost and you don't have that clarity, but keeping your eyes on the Lord is the priority, trusting him even when things don't necessarily look the way you expected it to look by a certain time, or even if you're not getting to that end goal the way you expect it to. So just know that you're going to have to give yourself grace throughout this entire process. You're going to have to accept that you're not going to be perfect, and the end goal is never perfection anyways. And that leads me to my third point, where discipline is not equated to perfection. It is equated to progress and consistency. The Lord is not calling you to be perfect, okay? So take that pressure off of yourself. All he really needs for you to do is to keep showing up, because he has already told us that his strength is made perfect in our weaknesses. So long as you stay consistent, so long as you stay the course, the Lord will continue to guide you and lead you along the way. So that's where discipline comes into play. You having that steadfastness in your faith and what he's called you and asked you to do. And it's also a matter of you being patient and being willing to wait on him, because it's not going to happen overnight. As bad as we want it to, it's not going to happen like night and day, where we get these promises, we get these end goals that we're hoping to achieve overnight. The Lord is developing us in this process. He's allowing us to develop this intimacy with him. But the responsibility that we do have is to be patient and to be faithful in our waiting season, to be disciplined and to be consistent in showing up regardless of how we feel, how hard it may get, or even when he says not yet. So just remember, God does not need you to be perfect. He just needs you to have enough self-control to keep going. And that is fundamentally what discipline is. So that is all I have for you guys. And I hope you were able to find some encouragement with whatever goal you're trying to achieve, or, whatever area of your life you're trying to be a little more disciplined in. But just remember that you are not alone. We all struggle with discipline from time to time in just different areas of our lives, but there is nothing that God cannot handle. So just remember that God is always there. He wants you to turn to him with these things, and he wants to help you through this. He wants to help you be able to achieve the goals that you're setting out for yourself, and he wants you to be able to walk into those promises that he has made to you. So just remember that all he requires from you is just to stay the course, okay? Keep going even when it feels hard, and lean on him for encouragement when you need it. But yeah, guys, that is all I have for you. And if you feel led to do so, be sure to drop a prayer request in the form below. It's completely confidential and I am the only one that reads it. So if there's something on your heart this week, or there's a specific area of discipline that you would like me to pray for, then definitely let me know and I would love to do so. But yeah, guys, I love y'all and I will see y'all in the next video.